Investigations. Lazaris.com and Concept Synergy Inc. reserve the right to investigate suspected violations of these terms. And these terms include the use of Lazaris's name without written permission outside of the Lazaris.com website, including, without limitation, any violation arising from any submission, posting, or emails you make or send to any forum. So Concept Synergy reserves the right and demands the right as a condition to access a book or buy a tape on Love, or download a tape on Love, or stream a tape on Love, agreeing to have your emails investigated to see if you have violated the trademark to write about Lazaris anywhere on any website. If you've sent an email to a forum in Australia, well, Concept Synergy demands the right to investigate that email. And if you've used the term Lazaris because Lazaris has been trademarked, or if you say, I was listening to the Lazaris material because that's been trademarked, Concept Synergy reserves the right to investigate that, and you must agree to that right, or you are not welcome to purchase or continue to purchase or listen to your purchases on the Lazaris website. Concept Synergy may seek to gather information from from the user who is suspected of violating these terms. So you've talked about Lazaris somewhere, let's say in a men's group or something like that, and Concept Synergy may inquire, like, why did you do this without written permission? Concept Synergy may suspend any user. So you wrote about Lazaris without permission, and your service is terminated. Now, we've seen from Concept Synergy's protocol, because this user agreement popped up right before I was about to do a meditation, we've seen that Concept Synergy is suspending, meaning Concept Synergy has suspended me from accessing my purchase, my subscription, for months now for failing to agree to this user agreement, which in agreeing to this user agreement says that I'm okay. I agree that Concept Synergy should be able to interrupt a 20-year friendship, to use Lazaris's terminology, at any moment, because you've granted them the right to investigate at any moment and assess your violation. See, Concept Synergy has registered the name of your friend, and based on you talking about your friend, the right to suspend that friendship. Sounds a bit like parents saying, no, you don't get to be friends with that person because you're black, because you're not the right religion, because you haven't said the right thing. Julian Assange is being relentlessly pursued with taxpayer money to be extradited from the United Kingdom under the Espionage Act, where you cannot, just like Edward Snowden, where we, the authorities, have the right to violate the Constitution, our laws, but you, the citizen, do not. And whistleblowers get punished, and they don't have a right to a public trial. They don't have a right even to tell the jury why they did something. We don't like it. We want to put you away for a few hundred years just for telling the truth about inconsistencies between the government's enactment of its own laws and policies and the people's enactment. And so you've got this hypocrisy, and we had the Patriot Act rammed down our throat in fear. Oh, the terrorists, etc. In fear. The Patriot Act is rammed down the throat of the American citizenry who doesn't put up resistance, because who has time to read through that? In fear, the Lazaris user agreement rammed down Lazaris' friend's throat. I was in no condition the evening I tried to press play for my evening meditation to read through all these agreements. So it just means, well, you don't get access to your friend Lazaris. Lazaris.com and Concept Synergy may suspend any users whose conducts or postings are under investigation. So now we're getting into the McCarthy hearings. Just because you're being investigated as a possible suspect, being a member of a communist party, well, you get blacklisted. You have your, we've decided to investigate you. And what's odd about this is not the normal fear-based tyranny of sociopathic companies trying to bully their users or suppliers or whatever into better prices or better favorable terms. We would expect that from a Microsoft or an Oracle. But Lazaris has said that it's easier to succeed than it is to fail, as just one example. And I don't experience this, of course, and no Lazaris friend that I know experiences this, but you would hope that Jach Pursel, Penny North, Michael North would experience this more than anyone else. And this is a draconian measure, meaning I've never had to agree to any company to give them the right to investigate me writing about them anywhere in the world. This is a unique fear-based power grab to Concept Synergy. Meaning nobody even wants to investigate what I'm saying anywhere in the world. I don't have top secret clearance of, something like that. So I've never been asked by anyone or any company anywhere in the world in 45 years to give unlimited investigative rights to anything I say about my friends anywhere in the world, and to suspend activity while I'm being investigated. You can't buy this book because we're investigating your use of writing about this over here. Now, as every authority figure promises, we would never abuse that power, right? Just give it to us, because there might be certain circumstances where your parents, where your government, where your friendly Concept Synergy. We would never abuse that power. But Penny North has cut off subcontractors from Concept Synergy based on false rumor and gossip. That's basically what investigation consists of in Concept Synergy, is someone they like says something they don't like, about someone they don't know very well or don't like. And based on what someone they like says about someone that they don't like, then that's the investigation. You don't get invited to share in a room. You don't have a joint therapy session. You don't have mediation. It's, oh my God, they said that? You heard from someone that they said this? My goodness. Well, we've got to take extreme measures to what? Protect what? You see, Lazaris talks in The Power of Dominion, you don't try and control people if you want to live in a world of dominion. You control the environment. And if you do a good job creating an environment that brings out the best in people, you don't need to control them. And so what Concept Synergy is saying with this and with every aspect of this user agreement is we have failed. We have failed to create an environment. Lazaris has failed to create an environment that induces the kind of behavior that we want to be around. Lazaris has failed, and everyone at Concept Synergy has failed to induce the behavior that they want. And it's also saying we know it. It's not only that we've failed, we know we've failed. And it's not only that we've failed and we know we've failed, because we have failed to induce the kinds of interactions that we want from Lazaris's own friends. So we've already dealing with, 1% of 1% of the population on the planet. And Lazaris creates their reality. And Lazaris has claimed to have the ability to create universes. We're just talking in their spare time or their 1%. So Lazaris can create universes. Lazaris's way has long since moved beyond our definition of gods or teachers or gurus. But Lazaris can't manage to create an environment that induces behavior that anyone at Concept Synergy can live with. And they know it. And so we have a one-way, abusive power relationships are all about imbalance. You see, when I was young, my mom and parents had rules. They just didn't apply to them. So you don't eat sweets until after dinner. But then you'd wander in the kitchen and mom would be secretly eating cookies. Shh, don't tell your siblings, I'll give you one. Right? There are rules that just don't apply to me. They don't apply to us. And the problem with these vertical rules, these imbalances in what is an abuse contract, the problem is that they give a message. There is an obvious message that is beneath vertical behavior. Vertical and imbalanced behavior is, this applies to you, it doesn't apply to me. I get every protection under the sun. You get zero. The message behind that, if you agree to it, is you have no value. I have value, of course, because I'm me. I'm Concept Synergy. I'm the channel of Lazaris. I have value, and none of my rights can be threatened in any way whatsoever. I guess we have to acknowledge that the law could limit that. But basically, if we could say so, we have zero responsibility for everything. You have complete responsibility for everything. You give away all of your rights and freedoms. We have all of our rights and freedom. And just sign here, we'll never abuse this. But, and you look at this, and there's nothing stopping anyone. If I want to hire a private detective to investigate Jach Pursel and find out exactly where he is and isn't living the Lazaris material, I can do that. There's no law stopping me investigating someone else. But the question is, what does it suggest? What does it suggest? And if I'm selling material on love and this and that and the other, but I'm spending my time investigating, does it suggest that I believe what I'm selling? So the issue is not that this is unusual in terms of no one in the world has ever asked for me to agree as a condition to buy their product, that they can investigate anything I say about the product anywhere in the world. And you have to ask, why did Concept Synergy trademark a name, Lazaris and the Lazaris material? Are they suggesting that Lazaris clients are so dumb that if another channel says, I channel a different Lazaris, that couldn't possibly be true, that there couldn't be two people in the world with the same name? There's plenty of Freds, there's plenty of Oprahs and this and that and the other. I don't think Oprah has trademarked the name Oprah. And I don't think anyone is so dumb that if they saw one person saying, I'm Oprah and I'm interviewing people, and they saw a 20-year-old girl doing a bad interviewing job, say, that's not the Oprah I want this Oprah. Why exactly do you need to trademark a name? Well, Concept Synergy has trademarked Lazaris and the Lazaris material, and wants to investigate. They, of course, have the right. Go at it. Here, I've written this about this and this on this forum. If you want to spend your time and your money satisfying your fear and anxiety, go off. Hire them. But why do you need me to agree that that's a good idea? Why do you need to have me agree that I like it? I don't like it. Because what it's telling me is that the people closest to Lazaris, who have 100% access to Lazaris from day one, don't have their shit together. I'm not asking Jach Pursel to sign an agreement letting me investigate whether he mentions my name anywhere on the planet. And if I thought that was so important, I would be open to some criticism. Dane, what's your life become that this is what you demand? Because Concept Synergy is interrupting a 20-year friendship over this. Can't talk to your friends until you agree to let us investigate any use of a name of your friend. Lazaris isn't even your teacher and your guru, according to him. He's just your friend. You just can't talk about your friends without written permission from Jach Pursel. There's a lot of pyramidal energy in Concept Synergy where, it's incredibly autocratic. We're not talking synergy and democratic. We're talking autocratic. We're talking control. We're talking fear. We're talking domination to an extraordinary degree. So we will interrupt your friendship with Lazaris if we decide to investigate you. We may investigate anything you've said anywhere around the world. And you have to agree that the consequences of that don't have anything to do with us. Now, Lazaris has told Jach Pursel hundreds of times that Jach Pursel creates his own reality. If, ands, or no buts, you create your own reality. Lazaris has said this to Jach Pursel more than he has said this to almost anyone else. It's just about proximity. But what Jach Pursel wants is, I am not responsible. I want everyone to agree that I'm not. Lazaris, the one that I'm selling, says that I am responsible, but I want everyone else to agree that I'm not at all responsible. If, let's say, you're preparing for an interview, going in for an interview, you want to do your relationship thing with your Lazaris thing, and you grasp that a power grab is going on. Now, you're invested in Lazaris because you think the techniques work. If you think they don't work, what the hell are you doing? Paying for friendship and using techniques that don't work. That's crazy making. So if you think the techniques work, but Concept Synergy thinks they don't, you see, because it would be perfectly consistent with the material for Jach Pursel to go into meditation and do a 33-second technique and visualize in his 33-second technique that everyone is saying wonderful things about him and about Lazaris. Wow, great. And wait 3 days, and then it happens, right? Because Jach Pursel works effectively with the material. Oh, it didn't quite happen then. Okay. Making progress, though. Missed a manifestation. Okay, didn't quite work. Clear out your payoffs and your martyr and this and that and the other. Oh, you're feeling self-pity because it isn't working. Okay, clear out your self-pity because that's the root of all problems, self-importance and self-pity. Okay, you did that. That's not working. And then have a vision, have dignity and this and that. Okay, what does that mean exactly? How you've got a break for lunch. Okay, do this. And it would be perfectly consistent for Jach Pursel to do all of that, and he could just go through one tape after another with the 7 techniques until the end of the entire material. And then if it didn't work, look at your payoffs for that and then start all over again and go through all the material again until Jach learns to create a reality where he doesn't need to threaten other people and their relationship with Lazaris to satisfy his own fears that he actually is a magician and has developed a map to do it in a new way than Microsoft and Oracle. I mean, Microsoft and Oracle, they don't ask to the right to investigate if you mention their name anywhere in the world, but they certainly threaten all kinds of dire consequences if you don't behave the way you want and don't seed them. I mean, this is a power grab. I couldn't open up Outlook. On my phone, and this ties in with the reason Julian Assange and Edward Snowden are important whistleblowers about what's going on, because Microsoft Outlook won't open as an app unless you agree to give Microsoft power to turn your phone on and off remotely. That's a very important skill to use email, right? According to Microsoft, that we need the right to access your camera to use email. Really? Really? You need that? Access your video camera. Oh, very important in reading email. Access all your contacts and turn your phone on and off remotely. Great power grab, isn't it? It's just what we need, is more companies selling backdoor entrances to our central intelligences. Another power grab, right? You see, the CIA and the US government do not trust the American people. The parents do not trust their children. Concept Synergy does not trust the friends of Lazaris, because they know they've failed to induce and control the behavior they want to induce and control through dominion, through love, through synergy, through partnering, through any other means, including 33-second techniques and myths of manifestation. But what kind of a confidence blow is it to the person preparing for a job interview to suddenly find their account has been terminated, one, by the people closest to Lazaris, too, and that they couldn't do a 33-second technique to verify the information or do this, that, and the other, that they've had to unilaterally dominate and control the relationship with a 1% of 1% of 1% of the planet that actually wants anything to do with Lazaris in the first place, which is Lazaris's reality creation. None of that works, apparently. And even the law isn't enough. Even the fact that there's no one stopping me hiring a private investigator or stopping anyone else hiring a private investigator to study and do this, and all this to study it. I mean, we can become our own central intelligence agents and, get into all the murky waters of fear and domination and bribery and illegal activity that's involved there. What concept synergy is saying, you have to agree, which is saying that you're okay with this. And if you need to, if that's the only way you can sleep at night is to know what I'm saying in some other forum about my own private relationship with Lazaris, have at it. Have at it, Jach. Have at it, concept synergy. But don't ask me to pretend that this isn't a gross expression of failure, incompetence, and that the entire Lazaris techniques, you notice in the entire body of the Lazaris material, I've listened to more than 5,000 hours. Lazaris never says, when you're afraid of something, write a new clause in your contract. It doesn't seem to come up. It doesn't come up on the love tapes. It doesn't come up when you're feeling fear and paranoid and shame, that what you need to do is hire a bunch of lawyers to come up with bulletproof things where you can't possibly make any mistakes because you grant yourself 100% right and you take away all the rights of your partner. Now, if this was a friendship contract, is there anyone who would sign this with a friend? Just ask yourself, okay, you're my best friend. I'd like you to sign this contract with me. I'm not going to sign it with you because that would share the balance. It's not that we're both signing it. Concept synergy agrees that any Lazaris friend who is concerned that Lazaris may be up to no good, or that Jach Pursel may be a hypocrite, or that concept synergy is abusing their staff, that anyone who's concerned about that can investigate any writings of any member of concept synergy anywhere around the world. This isn't like, let's exchange abuse contracts. You agree that I can investigate you about anything under the sun. I'll agree that you can investigate me for anything under the sun. And if I've said this word, you can suspend our friendship. And if I've said this word, you can suspend our friendship. It's a crappy contract, but let's both sign it because we don't know how to write a better contract. We don't know how to have a loving contract of synergy. We don't know how to trust each other. So this is the best we've got, but we're going to have an equal contract. We are ceding these rights. We're acknowledging that this is the nature of our relationship. If you do this, I'll pay you $100. If I do that, you'll pay me $100. There's balance. But when one person has all the power granted by Lazaris in a monopoly framework, you don't have to say, let's have an equally crappy contract. It's a crappy contract for you, but it's great for me. Sign it or disconnection. We're threatening you. And this is what Barbara Brannon said is the ultimate power structure in concept synergy. Concept synergy, you see, the government, you have to pay your taxes, this, that, the other. The government's leverage is a gun and a SWAT team. If you don't follow these dictates, whether they are reasonable or unreasonable, whether the average person would think they're good for the American people or not, screw that. If you don't follow these dictates, your door will be kicked in by a SWAT team, possibly on national television, to make sure to shame and intimidate you. And you will be taken and shot if you resist, and your family will be broken up, and you will be put into concrete boxes at taxpayer expense for an indefinite amount of time as we decide how we're going to punish you for not following these laws. This is the ultimate power of U.S. government. Just prison, detention, murder, theft, etc., with immunity. We see the way the police operate. They almost never go to jail. They're always just worried about something. They had to shoot this person. What if this had happened? Oh, thank you for protecting our city. Concept synergy has the ultimate little string, the little dangle, right? Lazaris has promised to love you eternally. You wouldn't want to lose that, would you? How many people do you have in your life who's willing to love you eternally? Not because of what you did or what you have, but because you exist. You see, Lazaris's pledge is to love every person listening to his tape, at the very least, because they exist. Not because of what they are, what they did, what they have. Not because of what they didn't do. Lazaris isn't saying we'll love you because you signed the Concept Synergy user agreement. Lazaris is saying we love you because you exist. That's a pretty fundamental aspect of love. It also doesn't have anything to do with Concept Synergy. Concept Synergy doesn't even love you, let alone love you because you exist. And you can't even have the right to pay Concept Synergy money. I take that back. They've billed me 3 times after blocking me to the forum and the streaming. So the billing can continue, but not the access. Not because you exist, but unless you agree to be investigated and say that you were okay with having them suspend the relationship with Lazaris. I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with Lazaris promising not to betray and not to abandon every person listening to their tape, and then grant monopoly power to Concept Synergy, which is basically saying, sign over the world or we may suspend your friendship at any time, at our sole discretion. I'm not okay with that. I think it's disgusting. I think it's inconsistent. Well, what's disgusting about it is, it's like, you haven't figured this out either. This isn't dominion. This is fear, domination, control, old maps, manipulation, intimidation. Okay, that's the game we're playing here. And it's Jach Pursel playing the game. It's Jach Pursel saying, sign this now, or you don't get access to your friend Lazaris. We'll keep billing you, but you don't get access. And it's kind of like, well, obviously, if the 33-second technique was that powerful and effective, who would hire a lawyer to do all this? You just say, I'd like to have good relationships with my clients and friends, like most metaphysical entities can do to some degree. Like, I've never seen someone else hiring an armed guard to stop Lazaris friends coming in to attend the Lazaris. I mean, the Lazaris events have been shrinking. They've been shrinking for decades. The 80s was the peak for Lazaris, and Lazaris created that reality, and so did Concept Synergy. And if they're already shrinking, do you really need to hire armed guards to get your core devotees to not come into a workshop? Is that really, again, 33-second techniques couldn't cut it? Myths of manifestation couldn't cut it? The power of dominion didn't teach you anything either? And so that's really the issue, is how do you have a vote of confidence in a body of material that is the antithesis of this user agreement? This is not on any of Lazaris's techniques, just bully people out of all legal rights and authority. He's never mentioned it once. But you have to pay attention to actions more than words. You see, Lazaris has not mentioned this user agreement. Lazaris didn't mention when Bill Brown was fired and returned to his family to take care of him in old age after working for decades with a pay cut from the post office until he got sick. And then they didn't want him anymore. Off you go. You take care of this elderly person. We don't want to. We don't want to give him retirement benefits. No. No. They create their reality. We're just going on and keeping more of the money. See, Lazaris didn't talk about that either. And the question is, why should the public believe these techniques that Jach Pursel doesn't believe and doesn't practice, that Alison Rose doesn't believe and doesn't practice? Lazaris talks about understanding. You can look at Barbara Musser's emails one after another that are good emails. No replies. How do you understand something you won't even dialogue with? Well, maybe you do the Lazaris thing. You just don't talk about the things that you don't want to talk about. You don't dialogue, you monologue. So these are problems with the consistency of the material, because how do you believe in material that the vendor doesn't believe in? Like, I'd never put this on my own car, but I'll sell it to you. I've got a monopoly on the distribution. That's the problem right there. Because anyone who can make the Lazaris techniques work for them in any possible way does not need to bully and intimidate to this degree. Now, Terry Clancy has revealed that they're actually paranoid. They're frightened about this coming out at Concept Synergy. Their fear is unusually high. Well, do they do the conquering fear technique and release that fear? No. They focus on reading and this. Now, this is the other joke. I write to Concept Synergy, these are my concerns. You can't get them to interview. Come on, Jack. Come on, Lazaris. Let's talk about this. No. We can't talk to you. We have no time, da-da-da. What we're busy doing is investigating our core members' postings in Australia. We don't have time to actually dialogue directly with you. We're busy investigating secretly and figuring out how to control everything behind closed doors. It doesn't work. It's never worked. It's an old map, which means Concept Synergy really isn't a map maker, is it? So what's Lazaris on about? You're a map maker, you're a map maker. Well, if it doesn't sit, if Jach Pursel can't make a new map around user agreements that actually lifts the resonance, what's the point of calling Jach Pursel a map maker? What's the point? When Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk are making innovative maps, admittedly about different things, and they're not talking, out their ass. They're not doing the exact opposite of what they're saying. By accepting this agreement, you waive and hold harmless all members of Lazaris.com and Concept Synergy Inc. from any claims resulting from any action taken by any members of Lazaris.com and Concept Synergy during or as a result of its investigations. Right? And of course, the US government wanted the same around the McCarthy era. You might be a member of the Communist Party if you lost your job because 5 FBI agents are only coming in to talk about you because you had a friend and you dated so-and-so and this and that and the other, and if you got fired, did the US government say, it's not really consistent with our Constitution that we're violating laws of free speech and this and that and the other? It's not in the interest of the public to hound you at your workplace. You shouldn't have lost your job because we're misappropriating taxpayer money. But you did. Here's 30 grand to tide you over till you get another job, right? Could we possibly afford that if we can afford 200 grand in private investigating to hound people per person? Could we afford 30 grand to get them back on their feet if we were wrong? We made a fucking mistake? No, no, no. We're your friendly government that abuses our power. Could the parent, after spanking the wrong child, do this, apologize, make it up and say, hey, how could I make amends and restore this relationship? No, well, you probably did something else I didn't catch you with, right? And could concept synergy say, you know, if we're wrong and if we have had, you know, if you were going through a crisis and we cut you off just on pure suspicion, we cut you off, and it had impact because it revealed to you that we don't believe our own material, and that shakes something up in someone. And that has impact too. Could you perhaps talk about this publicly, grieve with me, feel something, apologize, offer a few years of free service, offer a free consultation with Lazaris because we want to make amends for our negative impact? No. What does Lazaris do when he misdiagnoses someone medically? Doesn't look like you got cancer. You go in the next day riddled with cancer. Does Lazaris give a refund? Does Concept Synergy give a refund? Do you get a chance to sort this out? Or do you just feel like a fool for believing something that has nothing to do with reality? That's the question. And the question is, who doesn't want to be responsible? If you make a mistake, Lazaris says that part of transcending shame is the right to make mistakes. But does that mean the right to make mistakes without making amends for those mistakes? Apparently. Concept Synergy has the right to make mistakes and the right to have zero consequences for those mistakes, even though they hurt people because it's a vertical relationship to begin with. And Lazaris is what's granting the belief of that. Lazaris, you know, the way that the brain works, and if you don't know this, then it's problematic, because it means Lazaris isn't connecting you with reality. The way the brain works is that if Lazaris is the highest resonance to ever touch the planet, as he has said he is, if Lazaris creates universes in his spare time, as he says he does, then you think that's pretty neat. I don't know anyone who creates universes. I don't know anyone who's the highest resonance. I don't know anyone whose techniques always work. I don't know anyone like that. So this is a neat person, okay. So let's learn from this neat person. Let's emulate. It goes, this is exactly what all happens in all role models. Bill Gates is a billionaire. Let's do what he does. Steve Jobs intimidates his employees and gets endless press. Let's bully my employees. You know, we're tough and this and that, and what an idiot you are. And so people pick their role models, one, and then they copy them. That's what people do. They've been doing it for millions of years. So when Lazaris picks Penny and picks Concept Synergy and seeds a monopoly, everyone wants to be like Jach, like Penny, like Concept Synergy, like what are they doing? You know, if I was seeing Concept Synergy as my role model, I would busily write up user agreements with my employees. You do not have a right to write bad reviews without my written permission. Wouldn't that be great? Just treat people crappily. You see, because if you treat people really well, or you have discernment, and you actually screen people, and you say, you know, I don't think you're going to make a good use of the Lazaris material. Because our data, we actually gather data because we give a shit. We gather data, and people who are bipolar or people who are severely abused children tend to internalize shame around our material. 87% of them do. And we care about that. And so we want to check in and say, you know, you've got a risk here, and we care about you, and we don't want you to pay us money to hurt yourself. But of course, Concept Synergy has refused to gather the data except anecdotally. They know the techniques don't work. or they'd be using the techniques rather than ramming a user agreement down someone's throat. They know that plenty of people get upset at discovering, for example, that Lazaris's definition of a dream for Penny was her dying of medical complications and painkiller overdoses followed by her husband's suicide. They know that people are upset that that's what Lazaris meant is the dream and the last lifetime for Penny and all that. Because that's not how we want to die. None of us want to die after 18 miserable months of painkiller overdoses and lack of medical care and obesity, followed by a suicide. That's not what we have in mind. If we knew that that's what Lazaris's definition of the dream was, we'd say, fuck it, get away from it. No, we all have a different projection of what that is. I'm going to do very well and do this and this and that and the other. And so it's shocking when the people closest to Lazaris do that. And so naturally, there's backlash. A backlash created by the juxtaposition of Lazaris and his best bud. People get a reality check. Wow. I guess I could die a miserable death after devoting myself to the Lazaris material the rest of my life. That doesn't seem right. I want to talk to Lazaris, but you can't. It's a monologue. You can go and listen to another lecture on Memoria, and this creates inevitable bottlenecks of energy. Any psychologist would predict this. If Lazaris doesn't get it, what's he doing monologues rather than listening? It's fine not to get it. It's fine to make mistakes. But if you keep making mistakes, refuse to take responsibility, refuse to listen, refuse to dialogue, and make the same mistakes decade after decade, that's on you, Lazaris. It's not on the people who are sucked in and feel betrayed around that. And if some of them want to write crappy things about how betrayed they are, more power to them. Express your emotions. Don't bottle them up. There is no negative emotion. There's bottling it up and doing something useful with it, like telling other people where your mistakes hurt you and how Lazaris's language hurt you, and learn from it. That's in everyone's interest. This is the framework of control. This is the framework of domination. And again, if Lazaris's techniques were how to intimidate people into giving you more money and more power, I would say this is a brilliant execution. Brilliant. Magnificent. But when Lazaris is talking about the power of dominion, excellence, listen to the whispers before they become shouts, I don't see any connection. And if the people closest to Lazaris do not find the Lazaris techniques useful enough to apply as well as domination and intimidation, why should anyone else try such failed techniques? So that's the grief, that's the sadness, that's the gist of why this is a big deal. Not for most of the world. Most of the world, it says, what a joke. You see, but cults, religions, core beliefs are always absurd to the outsider. Wait a minute. You're going to a dark building, sitting on a cold floor with your knees and moving your hands together to a wooden cross? Someone you've never met who says this and you pray to him and it doesn't work and it doesn't work again? You're doing that? Your parents did that and they lost their children to an abortion, and then this, and then their favorite daughter was raped, and that's God's will. That's what it's absurd. Believing Muhammad, but then you're going to go to war. You're a Spanish Christian, killing people, violating the Ten Commandments. I mean, this is nuts. So this is no more nuts than anything that's been nuts before, and it's less nuts than many, because at least Lazaris is here talking or monologuing rather than dead thousands of years ago. But it's everything to the people who at some level want to do, believe, and who have invested years of their lives and tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in the relationship. It's very easy if you've got a profitable job and you take 5 days off a month. Well, that can be $100,000 in lost revenue a year. You then spend $20,000 on hotels and plane fares. Now we're up to $120,000. You then buy Lazaris crystals at 1,000% markup. It can easily take you to another 10, 20, 30,000 a year. And, you've got $500,000 invested in believing this, and then this, and then they cut it off because you had some doubts. It's a fragile thing when you have to coddle it and protect it. That which is incredibly strong, and I would be incredibly surprised if Lazaris is panicking behind closed doors. It's inconsistent with the whole paradigm. We don't feel pain, Lazaris says. We don't have any fear. So who's writing these fear-based contracts? It's not Lazaris. And there's a big juxtaposition, and it fits too close to too many cult-like patterns. And whether it's Lazaris or whether it's the people closest to him, if the people closest to Lazaris are in this amount of fear and this amount of control and this amount of domination, it just means that proximity to the Lazaris has not led to any big breakthrough, perhaps the reverse. Now, Lazaris has said that whenever two resonances are in proximity, the one goes to the lower goes to the higher, they both meet in between. And Lazaris has said they're not moving. He said that's been one of Lazaris's selling points. We're up here, and we're not moving. So if you stay in relationship with us, you're going up. Up until you die of chronic illness, up until you commit suicide, up until you start bullying friendships around the globe. How high do you have to get? How close to Lazaris's resonance do you have to get before you stoop this low to sever people's friendships over paranoia and fear, when it does not matter? It doesn't matter if I've got it all wrong. If you're dealing with reality and I'm off base, which I could be, if you're dealing with reality and someone's off base, they will eventually come round to reality because reality works better. But if concept synergy is out to lunch, and what I'm saying actually has some substance to it, eventually you always have to deal with reality. Eventually. And the more people who are talking and causing ideas to be considered, and Lazaris has said, thank God for skeptics. Well, Concept Synergy said we can't afford a skeptic. We're terrified of them. Who are you going to listen to? Concept Synergy or Lazaris? I don't feel that thinking critically, that freedom of speech, that determination to be powerful, that saying no to martyrhood and abuse contracts is inconsistent with the Lazaris material. I think being bullied into this abuse contract that's based on fear and domination is consistent with the Lazaris material. But where I hold Lazaris accountable is Lazaris chose Jach. Lazaris chooses silence about the concept synergy dynamics, abusive or otherwise. And so Lazaris is an enabler in today's traumatic language. I knew so-and-so was being raped repeatedly. I just didn't want to damage my job by pointing it out. It's an enabling dynamic. And who knows how that looks in Lazaris' framework? Maybe Lazaris is too busy creating universes to step up and do his job as a decent friend, as we would consider that a decent friend. And maybe Lazaris is too worried about other things or focused on other things to bother explaining what a friendship with him means and what it doesn't mean, so that there is no betrayal when he behaves nothing like a friend that we would ask for, design if we had the choice, or think about when we hear the word friend. Maybe Lazaris has a whole different definition of that he hasn't bothered to explain to his friend. Who knows? I think it's important to have this conversation for the people who are hook, line, and sinker into the material to such an extent that their attachment leaves them frightened of seeing the incredible abuses of power by concept synergy that is controlling access to that material.